everyone. This is Dave Dubeau here with another episode of the Property Profits Real Estate Podcast. Today, we've got the JV Queen on the other end of Zoom land, Mandy Branham. Mandy, how are you doing today?
I'm excellent. Thanks for having me, Dave.
It's my pleasure. So JV Queen, that is a wonderful title. It kind of sets high expectations. So tell folks how you acquired that very, very well-deserved title.
We started off in real estate, my husband and I, doing our own little thing, working our own little butts off and making our own little profits. And there was people that were like, hey, the next deal you find that's that good, let me know and I'll come and partner with you. This was 2014. We just paid a big chunk of money to join a coaching group because we didn't know what the heck we were doing. But we had lots of energy, lots of usefulness, and our time. And so, as we're doing these deals, next thing you know, I found another great deal. And somebody would say, I said, well, if you said you were looking for a great deal, I have one. And they said, we would like to partner with you. And so I'm working. And somebody else said, hey, we'd like another one of those great deals. And so I had a lot of people fall off because you got to talk to 10 to get one. That's, tip number one in the joint venture world is it doesn't just happen when you talk to one person, you get one joint venture. Right. You have to talk to 10 to get one. So we were talking to a lot of people. We would scare off a lot of people like, oh, here comes Mandy again, talking about real estate, and look at Mandy's Facebook, talking about real estate. And so we had a lot of those people fizzle away. But we started to attract a lot of people that did like the conversations that we were having and did like the people that we were becoming. And we liked talking about it. So as we continue to grow, I kept finding more deals that worked and attracting the people that came in. And so it started to become a very balanced portfolio. And now I have about 50 joint venture partners, just under 300 units of real estate since we joined that coaching group in 2014.
Now, we were talking a little while ago, and you've done some amazing stuff right smack dab in the middle of the whole COVID thing. I think you bought pretty much 3/4 of one whole town. I'm exaggerating, but you bought a good chunk of property in one town. Tell us a little bit about that. How many properties did you buy, and in what time frame?
You know what, even Dave, I remember being on, that COVID broadcast that you had phenomenally put together with some amazing experts, and everybody was there like going, what's going to happen with this COVID thing? So at first I was like, okay, let's, stand back and take a look at it. And I was, end of the summer, we were able to go up to a city. So we did hundreds of hours of research. We went up to northern city called Sudbury in Ontario. And we've purchased 44, 45. We've got our offer on our 46th asset right now, waiting to hear back if we are going to be
units. We're talking about different properties, right? So
so 46 assets. I think that would put us close to 130 units. Our first purchase was October 28th. Of 2020. So we just kind of were quietly doing all of this, and we actually kept it very quiet. We had our joint venture partners sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, so that they wouldn't tell everybody where we were going, because we didn't know if we should even be telling people we're really actively buying. We were following all the COVID protocols, all that kind of stuff. But then we just let it out, and the JV partners were like, I'm in. So well before the whole rush of 2021, we kind of had all of these assets under contract, and we're like, wow, kind of glad we did what we did when we did it, because now it's difficult to get into the market.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's talk about JVs, because that's your thing, that's for sure. And it holds a special part in my place in my heart as well. So first, just rewinding a few years. So 2014, when you're kind of getting started with this, and you're probably doing like a lot of us and self-financing your first few deals, it seems like you're not very shy, Mandy, but how was it that everybody knew that you were doing all this real estate stuff? And how did you get them kind of reaching out to you saying, hey, if you got a really good deal, let me know? How did that look?
I started to fish in a pond that I knew there were fish. Does that make sense? I was going to networking groups at the time that we were networking. So in this time of virtual and digital networking. I want you to go where there's other like-minded investors. So you don't need to go on a workout site to try and find a joint venture agreement, a joint venture partner. I want you to be going to like-minded sites with people who are talking, thinking, investing. So we were surrounded by people who we knew because we had also part of the same, collaborative coaching people and networking groups, Durham REI with Quinton D'Souza, just the Right Club in Burlington, Ontario. You can't go there and not talk about real estate. Right. So we went around, so people knew that we were investing. And I always showed up with a deal. I always had a deal. I had my little piece of paper. It might have been a conditional deal. It might have been a deal that had just come on the market. Maybe I didn't even have it under contract yet. It might have been a deal that Larry and I were going to buy on our own with our own 2 cents. And if somebody happened to want it, I was happy for them to be able to come on board. So it started out that a deal had to be so good that I was willing to put my own name on it. And so people kind of got that confidence level of, well, if Mandy's willing to put her money on it, then I'm willing to put my money on a deal that I know Mandy's.
You're kind of saying, hey, this is a great deal. We're looking for partners, but if we can't find one, we'll just go out and buy it ourselves. Is that basically?
Yes. I always ask myself 3 questions. How can I buy this deal? How can I change and add value? And how can I sell it? What's my exit strategy? And for that first one, could have been private financing, could have been an A lender or B lender, could have been a VTB, or it could be a joint venture partner. So you don't go into a deal thinking, oh, only if a joint venture partner comes along. You go into the deal thinking, what are my options for me to be able to buy this deal right now?
Very cool. Now, something that kind of pops to mind that other people might be thinking is, well, Mandy, if you're hanging out at the Right Club and with Quinton D'Souza and his group and REIN and all these real estate investment clubs, why is that a good place to find joint venture partners? Isn't everybody there looking to buy deals? Why? How does that work?
It's true. It's an interesting mindset. There's a lot of other people who want to be active investors, but there's always those people. And, I have lovely partners that showed up to me at a Durham REI and they said, that's it. We've been listening to you every month for the last 6 months and you showed up with a deal and you bought another property and we thought we could do this on our own and we can't. And so we just like to partner with you. And I said, well, I happen to have a great deal. Why don't you come on in with a deal like this? Or I would go to these meetings and there's a lot of people who do want to attract money and they're very quiet. I'm not that kind of quiet person. So I would stand up and I would share my deal and I'd fail and I'd say it horribly and I'd learn what not to say. And so with that fail forward kind of attitude, then I was also getting to be very known that Mandy was going to show up with a deal. And so if I hadn't found a deal or the market was too crazy or I was too scared, I have a lot of partners that are like husband and wife and they're lovely, but they can't agree. And so the only thing they can agree is that they can't decide which person they want to have, do the investing. So they're just going to come together and agree that they're going to work with Mandy.
Interesting. Yeah, that's what I was expecting you to say, because I've seen it over and over again. Real estate investment clubs have the doers, probably about really active doers, probably 20%. And then you got 80% of people that are watchers and waiters and thinking abouters and talkers, right? And they love the camaraderie. They love the idea of real estate. But as Ted Thomas says, they never get off the rusty dusty and actually do anything, or very, very rarely. So that's something that's really good to keep in mind, is don't get intimidated going to real estate investment clubs and showing your deals thinking that everybody else there has a lot more experience than you do or knows a hell of a lot more than you do, because there are a lot of analysis paralysis people there and in every real estate club. Would you say that that's fairly true?
100%. And, being consistent to these clubs, to these online networking groups, being consistent guess what? I'm showing up with the same kind of deal, and I could probably tell you, 10 other people, and you stay in your lane. So if you show up one night and you got this great RTO, and you show up the next night and you're looking for a private money lender, and you show up the next month and you've got some property in Moncton, and then it's in Calgary, and then it's whatever, nobody really understands where you're going. So, I showed up very consistently. Every month I would have a property. Every month the property would be a joint venture opportunity. And that joint venture opportunity would be typically when I started with Simcoe County, which is where I live. And so people would be like, well, they wouldn't come to me and say, hey, I found a great property in Windsor. Do you want to joint venture with me? I'd be like, no, that's not my lane. So show up and continue to be, just consistent to who you are and the type of assets that you're providing. And people start to get to know you for what you're really good at.
Awesome. So Mandy, we were talking a little bit before we hit record here, and we thought it might be a good idea to talk about some of the stuff that's actually in a joint venture agreement, because you and I agree that this hardly gets talked about in podcasts. So what are some of the, if somebody's thinking about bringing on a joint venture partner, first of all, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see people making when it comes to joint ventures and joint venture agreements?
Is trying to split it down the center and say, we're both going to go on title and we're both going to bring equal money, and we're both going, and you create an expectation that you're both going to do equal in the work and the management and the bookkeeping and the, dealing with tenants and, that kind of stuff. And the second that somebody kind of slides, and this happened to me, like totally, we showed up, the project was 70% done. This is my conversation to my joint venture partner. I felt like I was parenting a partner. I was like, look, dude, we are 70% of the way done, and we have done 80% of the 70%. Okay. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to be able to come finish the project. We will be 50-50 joint venture partners, continue to be working partners, financial partners. Okay. He goes, this is his comment. Well, we've got holidays booked. I was like, perfect. You can take those holidays, come up here and finish the project. He's like, well, we're going camping. I was like, okay, that's my option. So he went back and he talked to his wife, and they came back and they said, Kate, you know what? We are going to be happy for you to take over the project. As long as we, get compensated for the finances that we've been in there, and the financial partner that we are for the money that we've got in, we're going to walk away from the deal. And I was like, okay. So Larry and I go in and we finish up the project, and we paid him every penny plus some of the profits for having borrowed some of the money, like all that kind of stuff. There was no animosity left in between. But I realized in that moment that there can be too many cooks in the kitchen. So again, my share is that, let you be good at what you're good at, and don't try and overcompensate or think that you have to do what the other partner does, because that's the beauty of coming together with your uniqueness. Let somebody qualify for the mortgage and bring the money. Maybe it's the money for the down payment. Be very clear. I'm bringing the money for the renovations, and I'm doing the renovations. Okay, clear. Have your roles clearly identified so that nobody has to make an ass of you and me and assume that somebody was or wasn't supposed to do that. That's the biggest mistake I see.
So what do most of your JVs look like these days, Mandy? And we'll get back to what's in the agreement in a second, but just out of curiosity. So it's because what I'm accustomed to, at least, is, if I'm the active partner, I'm bringing the deal to the table, I'm bringing the expertise and the team to the table. My joint venture partner is bringing cash and perhaps qualifying, and that's it. They don't want to have anything to do with dealing with tenants, toilets, maintenance, any of that kind of stuff. What does it look like for you? Because it sounds like your JVs might be a little bit more active.
No, that's spot on. I'm very active, but I used to have an affirmation. I attract millions in joint venture capital. And then after this example that I just shared with you, I added a word to my affirmation. I attract millions in passive joint venture capital. Okay. And so that word passive became super important to me. And so I have partners that I love them to pieces, and they are geniuses for having to come on board, but they live in British Columbia where you are, and I've never shaken their hand. They've never set foot in the property, and their returns are amazing. Okay. So I attract passive investors. So somebody will say, I would like to learn. I'm happy that somebody can learn the process. They learn the financing process. They learn the bookkeeping process. They learn the monthly day-to-day transactions in a joint bank account. But that doesn't mean that they have to swing the hammer and knock on the tenant's door and post notice and show up at landlord tenant board. That doesn't mean that that's the active side. So, that your joint venture ways is the same way that I am attracting my joint ventures to do small multifamilies, 2 to 6 units. 6 units we've got with some creative couple institutions for financial residential financing. There we go.
Yeah, very cool. So, Mandy, let's talk about some of the stuff that's in the actual joint venture agreement, some of the important terms that you think that we should keep in mind.
Yeah. So whose name goes, who is holding the joint venture? Is it going to be a personal name to a personal name? Is it a corporation to a corporation? Or is it a personal to corporation? Like it really, how we hold the joint venture. Mine, we don't own a corporation together unless the building is larger than those 6 units. We might enter into the ownership of a corporation together. But for the most time, it's just 2 people holding an agreement. The tax law that we follow is a profit sharing tax law. So it's not actually a joint venture tax law. So we share everything within that property at a profit sharing 50-50 is the profit sharing that I do. So you might hold it in a corporation. I'll hold it in a corporation. We might pay different taxes based on our type of corporations, but that how we hold the asset in the joint venture is one of the important factors that people need to understand. Another thing to really understand is the exit strategy for the joint venture to be able to go in, and that's identified in the joint venture agreement. This is a 5-year buy and hold. This is a 3-year flip, or this is a 3-year buy and hold. And so nobody's shocked and shaken when 5 years comes up and we say, excellent, thank you so much. That was great. I hope it was as good for you as it was for me, and we're ready to sell the asset. There's no emotion that kind of goes on in there. Right. And the other thing really, really, really big in a joint venture agreement is just kind of like my first story, is to identify very clearly whose roles and responsibilities are. We've gone back to the joint venture agreement before. Somebody said, you're responsible for the bookkeeping. Well, there was a bookkeeping fee. Well, I oversee the communication to the bookkeeper, but I don't have to pay the bookkeeper fee. And it says in there that any fee that's associated to that property will be paid by the property. Bookkeeping fee, garbage removal fees, maintenance fees, tax levies, whatever those might be. And so in this case, we had to go back to the agreement. It was clearly identified that I was responsible to communicate to the bookkeeper, but I was not responsible to have to pay the bookkeeper. So just one of those little things that, we don't often go back to the agreement, but it had been clearly identified what my roles and responsibilities are. So in there, you might be thinking, well, do you do your own property management? I do not. I have a dedicated boutique superior property management company that actually only manages my joint venture assets. But for that company, there will be a fee paid by the joint venture identified within the joint venture agreement that will be paid every month to this company. Something else is,
you have
yeah.
to that company, correct? That's your property.
Yes, I have ownership of this company. Yeah, can't say that it's like, trust me, I'm not on Marco Island having this conversation with you.
It's a thankless job. They should be damn appreciative that you've got the property management company taking care of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Money-
something else that's really important in the joint venture agreement, you will hear the word transparency from me because that's me. I want you to know that, what goes on in our property is something that you will know. I might not tell my joint venture partners everything because they don't need to know, or I've already got it all figured out, or I'll tell them the aftermath of, we just had a pig in one of our units, a pig. Well, it's against bylaw. The tenant didn't tell us all this kind of stuff. And now there's this little piggy running around.
It's a pot belly pig or something.
So, the partner is like, what's going on? Why did the tenant leave? And we're like, well, do you want to see the text and the bylaw and all this kind of stuff? So, but the majority of my joint ventures are very transparent. And so one of the clauses in the joint venture is that any purchase over $500 or maintenance and expense over $500, and I could probably, with the cost of wood and materials, probably increase that now to $1,000. But you can tell where my comfort level is with my joint ventures. But anything over $500 has to be agreed upon. So, what's an example? Well, I could replace a used dishwasher with a $250 Kijiji dishwasher, put it on, say, here you go. There's a $250 invoice. And there's nothing that we would have to discuss. Okay. But we've got an amazing family and we want to put in a brand new dishwasher or a brand new fridge, and brand new fridge is like $700, $800, $900, $1,000. That's a phone call, a text to say, hey, the tenant's fridge has died. I don't want to go used. I want to go new. We value them very much. And it's an agreed upon choice. So nobody's shocked and shaken when they get an invoice. It's like, what the heck? I didn't see that one coming. It would have been, a cost that would have been agreed upon.
Well, that's a good question. So when you do have those kind of extraordinary expenses, are you paying for that 50-50 with your joint venture partner? Do you have a contingency fund already in place so you don't have to, have any of these kind of cash calls?
Excellent.
Preference?
Yeah, so 5,000 is my new zero, typically for a duplex. That will increase. That reserve fund will increase based on the size of the property, based on the amount of rents, like the monthly rental rate, and depends on if we are post refinance or during renovation costs. Okay, so we have a minimum reserve fund that we just never drop below. So let's just say we're riding at 5, 6, and I also don't pay cash flow monthly. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not accumulating cash flow monthly, and our 5,000 is now 6, and it's now 7, it's now 8, and it's 9, it's 10. Right. But if we have $1,000 fridge that needs to be repaired, we can just take it out of our cash flow and pay for it, and nobody has to do a cash call. If there happens to be a cash call for a tenant turnover, let's say that we've owned the property for 3 years and a tenant chooses to leave, and we know that the rents are going to go from $1,000 to $1,500. Okay. But that tenant turnover is going to be $15,000. Probably not inappropriate. We're increasing the rent quite significantly. We would each have to pay $7,500. So we're actually in it for 50% of the profit and 50% of potential any losses or expenses that come along the way. The only costs that are not split, and again, this is something that's very clearly identified in the joint venture agreement. Yeah. When I do up my original pro forma and I ask my JV partners for, this is a $400,000 duplex, 123 Main Street, and you need $80,000 for closing costs, for down payment, and $50,000 for renovations. Cool, $50,000 for renovations. If we get in there and the roof, we didn't know that the roof needed to be done and the sewer line backed up and 3 more tenants left and the renovations just, went up and up and up. Anything over that $50,000 is split costs because they're not initial renovations. They would have been unforeseen maintenance and repair, and maintenance and repair is split 50-50.
Got it. Makes sense. All right. Very, very cool. Now, what about an escape clause? Like if you're 2 years into a 5-year deal and your JV partner goes through a divorce and just has to liquidate, is that contemplated in your JV agreements as well?
Yeah. Dave, you manage assets, you manage tenants, and, if somebody doesn't want to be in the agreement, I don't want to be in the agreement if they don't want to be in the agreement.
Right.
And, unless we're in a negative situation, and I have been in a negative situation where the partner had gotten in over his head, COVID had happened, delays because of COVID had happened. Like you could just tell this guy, I think the guy's wife had lost his, like he was just a overthinker. Okay. Whatever. I said, we should really hold on to this asset. This was like October of 2020. And if we just would have held on to it until spring of 2021, we would have made an extra $50,000 to $80,000. Who knows, right?
Right.
Nope, we need to sell. So I don't want to be in a joint venture with somebody who doesn't want to be in. So yes, there's clauses in here that would say, I need to take you to mitigation and we got to go through this and I can buy you out. You can buy me out. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to argue with somebody. I don't want to be in a relationship that you don't want to be in either. And so we sold the asset. We are at a loss of $14,000 in 2020, which meant that he got all of his money back for renovation down payment, except for $7,000. And I'd actually at that point invested some of my own money. And so I got all but $7,000 back. And I'm talking to a T. There was a last water bill that came in and I sent him 50% of the water bill. Like we split everything on that property 50-50 at a loss. I do not want to be in an agreement. So I always say that there's a relationship on one side and a joint venture agreement on the other. And we need to have a relationship to enter into with that know, like, and trust. And we need to have an agreement because, gosh darn it, my lawyer, my accountant still tell me I need to have an agreement. But we like to stay here. A little bit of back and forth, a text to be able to say, this is a shitty situation, but how are we going to work through it together? Yeah. And so we have the agreement to know that we can say, well, you're on the line for half of the expenses, Mandy. And I say, well, and you're on the line, like, whatever.
But everybody knows that going into the deal.
That's right. Yeah. So as long as you can understand that you're staying, you've got the agreement, but we're basing this on, let's communicate here and try and work our way through a problem. And if we can't, my escape clause is my mental health. See you later. Like, it's not worth it.
Well said. Awesome. Mandy, time flies when we're having fun and we're talking JVs and all this kind of good stuff. And people want to find out more about Mandy Branham and the JV Queen. What should they do? MandyBranham.com. If you're interested in investing, you can book a discovery call. If you want to learn to do what I do and become a joint venture expert yourself, gosh, let's have that conversation. See if I might be able to help you grow a portfolio based on passive investing. Follow me on social media, Joint Venture Queen, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. You're very, very active on YouTube. I mean, you've been doing that for a while, right? I had the pleasure of being on your show not that long ago. So.
Yes, yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. I love it. I'm having fun because I'm putting out there that, if I could cut open my brain and share all the wisdom with the world, then my grave's going to be a little bit more empty whenever I come to that time. I don't want to leave knowledge, to come with me. So I'm offering it out to be able to say, what I do is not rocket science. So how can I share that with other people?
Fantastic. Mandy, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, everybody, take care, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye. Well, hey there. Thanks for tuning into the Property Profits podcast. If you like this episode, that's great. Please go ahead and subscribe on iTunes. Give us a good review. That'd be awesome. I appreciate that. And if you're looking to attract investors and raise capital for your deals, then I'm going to invite you to get a complimentary copy of my newest book, right back there. There it is. The Money Partner Formula. You can get a PDF version at investorattractionbook.com. Again, investorattractionbook.com. Take care.